10 years from now, if humanity still exists, I think we'll look back at the early AI-influenced advertising and be like, oh, God, the hell were we thinking? But then it'll get better and hopefully be used to make better things. But the AI is going to be a mirror of humanity.
But have you ever thought, what if this is all just a dream?
Welcome to Creativity Squared. Discover how creatives are collaborating with artificial intelligence in your inbox, on YouTube, and on your preferred podcast platform. Hi, I'm Helen Todd, your host, and I'm so excited to have you join the weekly conversations I'm having with amazing pioneers in the space. The intention of these conversations is to ignite our collective imagination at the intersection of AI and creativity to envision a world where artists thrive. Phil has been working in the advertising industry for 25 years. He started as a copywriter when the internet was young, then moved on to creative director roles at some big agencies in New York and Atlanta, as well as some smaller ones in the Midwest before setting out on his own. He's currently freelancing as creative director and strategist for several agencies in New York, and he's based out of Brooklyn. You can see his work at philgable.com. He also owns his own production company called Porcupine Armadillo, which specializes in weird, low-budget comedy, which you can see at porcupinearmadillo.com. And we'll put that in the show notes so you don't have to figure out how to spell it on your own if you want to watch some genuinely, delightfully strange videos. Is there anything else you want to say about what people will find, Phil?
I don't want to give too much away. I want to, inspire just enough curiosity and mystery. And then let people be surprised or horrified or whatever their personal reaction is. There's no wrong way to feel about what you find there.
And Phil and I met back in 2012, and we've worked on different client projects ever since. One thing you may have already picked up on, Phil is very funny, and we always have a good laugh. And it's always wonderful hearing his wildly creative and hilarious mind at work. And pairing that with ChatGPT is a real treat, which we will get into in a bit.
And we've actually switched around because I think I was your client first, and then you hired me to do some stuff later, and then we were both side by side at stuff. And then they figured out that it's better if you were like, it went better if you were like a little bit over.
And I forget who actually connected me to the brand that we first, where
I think it was the good folks at Swell Shark, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Shout out to Swell Shark for that introduction, because that was back in 2012 already. So how would you describe your humor? You do stand-up comedy. You describe your videos as strangely weird on Porcupine Armadillo. So how would you describe your humor?
I would say dark, really dark, and generally like absurdist. I feel like that's the closest thing I have to a religion is just appreciation for absurdity.
Well, and we did have a talk before this episode to keep everything PG-13. So we'll do our best to adhere to that today.
Yeah. So it's not going to sound that dark today. But next time there's a show or something, if you want to like post that, and people can come experience the darkness. But then when they feel better when they leave. Yeah.
And you've been in the advertising agency, for the bulk of your career, starting off as a copywriter, then going into creative director. How do you think about your creative process? Is there a certain approach or method to the madness that you have that you can share with us today?
The most scientific way I can put it is kind of think about stuff for a while. I do find moving around is sometimes helpful. Like if you're stuck, they've done studies that suggest like if you're walking around, that gets things going. And if you're thinking about it while you're in a car, that's even more effective than walking. I once had the honor of appearing in a an episode of a reality show where they were trying to like show what it's really like in ad agencies, and the producer beforehand came to me and was like, I want to know, like, tell me when the moment's going to happen when somebody's going to like run across the office and be like, I've got it. And I was like, never, because what's probably going to happen is they're going to think about it. They'll think of something in the shower and write it down, be like, and then they'll show it to me in my office and I'll be like, this was pretty good. That one's less good. Take this one and do more stuff with it. As a creative director, I believe in trying to like, you don't want to oversteer. If I had to document it, I think the best explanation was Bill Pullman in The Zero Effect, when he talks about, there's a scene where he talks about having to document the method, and people should just look that up. It's about 12 minutes in, I think.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. Go to creativitysquared.com and you'll get all of this. You could tell you're talking to like an advertising and marketing person in this episode, more so than some of our other episodes.
I'm suspicious of anybody who says that they have a really specific method.
It's either beta or theta flow that you're talking about, where the brain is more creative and not in the noise of the day-to-day consciousness stuff. So. And that's why when people are like going to bed or in the car, like you're in a different brainwave, and that's where the creative ideas come. There is science behind that part.
I do hate noise, and I don't really like to sleep either. So that makes sense.
That's funny. Okay, so the advertising industry, you've been in it for 25 years or so. How has it changed, or how have you seen it change over that time, especially in this interesting moment that we find ourselves with AI as this new big disruptor that we're on the precipice of, or at the beginning of, I should say?
Like how it's changed generally, it would be like, that would be like 4 or 5 hours. It goes through cycles where like for a while, like fun, and then everyone's like, no, don't do anything fun. There was actually a period around 2007, 2008 when there were articles appearing that were describing the phenomenon as like sadvertising, where suddenly it's like, suddenly like all the TV commercials got like really serious, and people wanted to like address like really heavy and like do pulling on the heartstrings, which like if somebody's paying me, I can do it, but I prefer to stay away from that kind of thing and do things that are funny, because those are things people want to see again and again. I think currently what I'm noticing is, everybody's freaking out for all kinds of reasons. Like it's getting budgets are tighter, things are tense, and then people freak out a lot about AI and having things written by AI, and what does this mean? I'm not as worried about it. I find it to be like a handy tool. It's going to take a while before like it can do like strategic and creative brand level thinking. And at the risk of sounding like too artsy fartsy, like it's going to be a while before it can like you can tell it like write something that's actually funny and have it deliver. Because it's going out and it's sending like its magic robot tentacles out to like grab references of things, right? Which is what makes it fun as a tool, because you can be like, rewrite this thing in the voice of that thing or that person who has like a really defined style and there's a lot of reference for. If you're doing something new, you're doing a new campaign that has a very specific sensibility, and you want it to write something that's really good, it's not going to be able to like pick that up. At least not yet. Like I told it to rewrite the Declaration of Independence in the voice of Dr. Seuss. And it did that. And it was like super fun.
Do you want to pull that up and read it?
It said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, it should have been a rhyme in there somewhere, but we're fed up. But we're fed up with the king's rule. His ways are cruel. We want freedom and we want it now. We're done with taxes and being bossed around. We're forming our own nation and we're taking our own ground. We pledge our lives, our fortunes, and sacred honor to this great land of ours, the United States of America. We will not be silenced. We will not be swayed. We will stand tall and make our voices heard today! Exclamation point. And I've had to do, and it's great at mimicking like a voice of something, at least on a superficial level. I told it to write a sermon about honesty in the style of Eminem. It did that. I told it to write a 90-second monologue about meatloaf in the voice of Barack Obama, and it did that. It's, so it's a really fun toy for that kind of stuff, and it's like super handy if you're like, if it's like, take this product description and make it shorter, that kind of thing. I'd be, if I was making a living writing like blog content for SEO purposes and things like that, I'd be a lot more worried. So I think it's going to replace like that kind of stuff, things that you would usually throw to things that would usually be like interns or juniors or something. When you get to like the more campaign ideas and brand ideas and stuff, like I think it's going to be a while before it can do that, if anything, because it's like you're making a new thing, and you're it has to like find references for that, and also just I periodically test it. Of like write a commercial for this thing in this kind of comedic style, and it fails miserably, and it's like, man, if you were relying on it to do that, you would like do it 4 or 5 times and be like, oh god, this is more trouble than just having a person who's good at writing actually write it.
And when you test it like that, do you also see that as kind of like a brainstorming tool of like, let me see what it does and like I can play off of it, or just seeing how bad it is? It's like, okay, let me just rewrite it and not do what it generated at all.
No, I haven't found it useful as like not as a brainstorming tool. But I find that it's a handy, quick editor when it's just like, you're working on a deck and need something to be slightly shorter, that kind of thing. But yes, it's not really good at generating like original. It generates like generic. If it was a junior writer, you would fire it pretty quickly. It's like if you had a junior writer whose only goal was, I want to be consistently employed, making things longer or shorter or making slight tonal shifts. But even then, it's kind of like when you tell, Alexa or Siri to do something and they do like this like dumb literal interpretation of it. A lot of times it's like that. If you're like, make this letter sound more conversational, and then it comes back with, hey there, what's up? And it's not. It'll get better, I'm sure, but like, right now it's kind of it's good at a certain range of editorial functions, I would say.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that, it's generative for sure.
Yeah.
And the way that it's described is that it does create something new based on all the information that's trained on. But you've said a few times, like, it's really not original ideas because of the generative nature of it. So how do you know when an idea is good? Is it just like a gut instinct? How do you rate a good idea or an original idea?
It's sheer godlike clairvoyance, with a healthy dose of narcissism. It's gotta be something that like really surprises you. Whereas like if you tell it like even something where it's like, come up with some scenarios for this kind of thing, it gives you things that it's like, it'll come back with a list and you're like, damn it, these are the most predictable. I could have done these, and I'm not even a computer. It disappoints when you want it to give you like a really new angle on something, on like a concept. But if you're just looking to fill in, like I find it's useful to like fill in things. It's like you're in the middle of several things, and it's like, oh, I need a couple more examples of blah blah blah. It'll do that.
Well, and what are some of the fun prompts that you've put in there? Because it sounds like you do have a lot of fun just playing with it and testing it out and seeing what it will do.
Yeah. It's like having, it's like how if you have if you have a stove and want to add like an extra burner and you have like this like side burner or hot plate or something. I feel like at least currently, like AI writing things are kind of your side hot plate of like, all right, just keep this warm. Don't try to do too much with it. Just keep it. Yeah. But I think like the image ones are fun because it's like combining like movie posters. Like I had it combine, do like Taxi Driver meets Pretty Woman, Gone with the Wind and Star Wars, and it combines those in like interesting, fun ways, largely because they're like still very screwed up. They are, people talk about it being like, oh, it's great for like generating like a quick piece of concept art. And I think that's where it's like the skill is actually being able to write the prompt well. Cause it's like, I've had it be useful for that a few times, but then, I don't know, last week I needed a possum juggling peanuts, just a pencil sketch of it. And it's like, I don't have time to do that. And this isn't the real art. This is just like for reference. And you put that in and it comes back and there's a possum with a squirrel tail and then one with two heads. And you're like, okay, no squirrel tails and only one head. And it kept coming back with like multiple limbs for some reason. And the dumbness is what makes it fun to me right now. Like those AI generated commercials that people have made on Runway for pepperoni hug spot pizza.
Well, tell us about that, and I'll be sure to embed it in the show notes too.
Yeah, we should put a link and whoever the person is that actually made it. But it's like they made somebody took it on themselves to make some genre commercials for like pizza and burgers and beer, and it's all kind of, but it's all, and they're using like the Gen 2 of Runway, which is like the next level, but it's source footage is like old commercials from the 90s. And then it just starts like sticking stuff together in ways that show like a fundamental lack of understanding of human anatomy for one thing. And, and then they have, and it's right now, it's great for making things that are just like so dumb that they're fun and so bad that they're good. I'm sure that'll change.
There was actually a film club I went to a few times when I lived in New York. And I forget the name of it, but it was like the Horribly Fabulous Films. And they would pick really bad films to watch. Yeah. And then on the other screens, tweets for like the best, like pithy lines about the bad film. And then if like certain things like, what was the film, like Santa Slays, like every time there's like a bad or an object that's used as a weapon but that's not actually a weapon, drink, and they turned it into a drinking game, which was really fun. And I feel like we could do that with these ads. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like there's a great I don't know if they're doing anything, but there's these guys in Brooklyn that run a thing called the Found Footage Festival. And they're great, and you can order videos from them, just compilations. It started when one of them like was working at a video store and found stuff that the store was throwing out and was like, this is all terrible, but funny terrible. And they compiled them, and it's like, I feel like once those guys have access to one of the like better video AI programs and they can upload some of that weird shit, I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a whole new, I don't know, art genre to describe this, of like AI surreal absurdity or something. I don't know.
Well, I've heard people refer to it as AI hallucinations, which I think is a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the term hallucination is really used to when it fills in the gaps of, like you mentioned earlier, that
Yeah.
if it's not a super well known person, and this is a great way actually if you've never played with ChatGPT to ask it about yourself, because when I did that myself, it came back that I had created a conference, a social media conference. I was like, that sounds cool, but I didn't do it. It totally hallucinated and filled in those gaps. So it does that a lot, and that's why you can't take it for face value, and always double check when it comes out to make sure that it's actually accurate.
And when it's going out and like grabbing just whatever it can find, it's like there are a few other other Phil Gables in the country. It's like there's like two of them are like science professors. And so I was like, what does it do if I wanted to write a bio and it described my crossover career of chemistry and advertising? And it's like, well, no, you're not good for this yet either. But probably will be. And then there's the it's fun to play around with the AI voice things, because it's also in a similar way. It's like if you want it to be like actually good and have nuance and soul, you need like a person doing it. If it's but they're great for when it's like you're making something where it's like, I need a voice that sounds kind of stilted and awkward. And it's like, and I guess if you're doing something that was like purely informational and you wanted like a straight read of things and it was short, you could probably do that. But then it's like, if you try to, it does, as an actor, it doesn't get nuance either. And you can even like give it really specific instructions, and it's like, wow, yeah, if you were a writer, I would fire you. And if you were a human actor, I would also fire you. But since you're, free or $20 a month or something. But yeah, I think the AI voices are great for things where it's supposed to sound stilted and awkward and kind of like comedically artificial. But you see these ads on LinkedIn and stuff for like voiceovers that'll fool your boss. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. If these are really fooling your boss, then you should work somewhere else, because your boss is really dumb.
I love that you like lean into like embracing the awkwardness and the absurdity of where the AI and the tools are right now.
Yeah, and I mean, and if the voice ones do like eventually get good, then that's like the panic everyone has, I think, in the industry of like, if it does get good at that stuff. But I think this, in terms of writing, I think the stuff that it's going to get good at first is the stuff that I don't really like doing anyway.
I had a conversation with someone at South by on this, because I think, differentiating like brand strategy from performance marketing, where you do a ton of A/B testing and generating lots of just like, I mean, to a certain extent, it's just grunt work variations of ad creative, whether that's visuals or copy. And it's like, it helps pay the bills, but it's not the sexiest. It's not the most fun. And the gal I was talking to, she's like, yeah, it's almost like a relief that I don't have to do all that anymore.
It's going to replace that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you're on like, a fifth round of revision for a headline, and there's like one word that like try as you might, like they're not understanding why it needs to be that word. And like, is there another word for this? And give me several synonyms for this. Like as a backseat or as a sidecar editorial assistant, it's very handy. But it's kind of like, it's like the, in terms of like the full-time roles that'll replace, I don't think those are things that people like really love doing anyway. And then there'll be the skills to like manage that and like fact check things and all of that. I think will like, there's a cycle. It's sort of like,
And the file management. Where's the AI that can handle all of the file management? I would love that.
yeah. There's still somebody that has to be like at the controls, and there's some people that want to like, put tighter reins on that. But then it's like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna make like rules in advertising and entertainment, like when you drive through New Jersey and you can't pump your own gas at a gas station because they were like, well, we're gonna protect these jobs, and it's like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, not to knock whatever anyone does for a living, but it's like, I don't know if like, I don't think those people love doing that. And if they were, there's other things they could get. So it's like, it doesn't make sense to like preserve the more like grunt work things just to preserve them. If like new things will come up, it just takes a while for those things to come up, and that's a painful process. And that's why we need, as you know, like that's why we need to have like social safety nets and transition things to help people transition when those roles get replaced by stuff. But like I was reading something about robot bartenders. There's a few bars in Tokyo.
There was a story of a woman in China taking a baseball bat to a robot in one of the hospitals because there was a shortage of nurses, and that's a very vulnerable state, being in a hospital and not being able to connect with a human. But yeah, so that, the reality of some of this stuff can be a little daunting.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Or sobering, I should say.
A robot bartender is not going to actually be fun. Like that's part of what makes a good bar is like who's actually there. In a hospital, the only thing I would like is if they could simulate like in Empire Strikes Back, after Luke gets frozen to death and has to go into the Bacta tank, and there's that weird robot standing there fixing his hand and stuff. Like if they could do that, that's going to be a really niche start.
Well, yesterday was the time of the recording is May 5th. So yesterday was May the 4th. Yes. So we'll probably between some of the image generation that you did with Star Wars, there's going to be a Star Wars theme, I predict, in today's conversation.
It's not all. It sounds like it'll be cost efficient and helpful, but it's like, this is no Luke Skywalker in the Bacta tank.
Yeah. Well, and talking about the job replacements and new opportunities, at my parents' house in East Tennessee, we still have a VHS player, and we still have all of our old VHS tapes, which are kind of funny. But we have a making of the original Star Wars on VHS. Oh, wow. And it's so fun to watch because how they did special effects, they would be in, I'm not going to use all the right terminology, but in one of the starships, and like they literally had people outside of what they were sitting in, like shaking them from the outside to get that it was like, flying through space. And now we have all these like special effects that like really replaces a lot of the original really innovative ways that special effects were done too.
It was a real art, and I still always prefer like if you can do it in camera, it's just going to be that much cooler and that much more interesting, and it's more fun. But then it's like, but also, I think an interesting analogy, like when CGI first started showing up, everyone was blown away. But then a few years, it didn't take long for CGI to get better, and then everyone to be like, "Oh, the CGI in that first set of Star Wars prequels was really awful." And then there was a lot of CGI and commercials around that same time that seemed like everyone was like blown away until a year later and was like, oh wow, that actually wasn't that good.
Yeah, I see the conversation almost more on Twitter around Midjourney. Like there's like the images that come out of Midjourney, and I have not played with it at all myself. They have this like hyper realism look to them where you can, And,
Yeah.
they miss some of the depth of field and some of those elements, but it's a lot of that look or aesthetic seems hyper real and you can kind of tell, but it is getting better and better too.
Yeah. No, a lot of the stuff people make on Midjourney is really fun. But it's like, to really use it, you have to get into their like Discord, and it's like a more complicated like interface than the things like Dream Studio and the like 50 other ones. But those, it's like a lot easier to use, but the results aren't as good. But it's funny too. It's like even, it like if you still have like a person coming up with like what the prompt is. Like even Andy Warhol, like didn't, it's not like he did every single thing by hand. Like he had a whole staff that he would, he'd have an idea and have these people make these pieces. And then, so it's not, I feel like in the right hands, it's, it's a fun party trick on at least, but it's a handy tool to have if you have like smart people like directing it. But like anything, it's like if dumb people use it to do dumb things, then that's going to be terrible. And it's a pessimist is never disappointed.
So you mentioned, we've mentioned some of the tools. Are there certain ones that you really like playing with, or have any, are the pros and cons of some of the ones that you've experimented with?
Let's see. I keep a whole set of like bookmarks, under there. Adobe Firefly, and then, Microsoft made one. I think they just put it on Bing for like images, like are pretty good. And it's so weird to like go jump from one to the other and see which one takes direction better. And again, you can't help but think of it like as a person of like, you put it in and, I told it to make I told one of them to like generate an image of friends on a couch watching television, and it did that. All of them had like 3 legs for some reason. And that's where you're like, why does it do that? Someone must know. I don't know why it does that, but it's like, it'll be like really handy for one thing. And then you want to use it to just make a quick image for something else. And it's like, oh God, I could have just like photoshopped this myself in less time than it took to like try doing this. But I think my favorite thing is the, just when you do want like a piece of a background voice, or like a voice that sounds, voices that are awkward and in awkward exchanges. Murph AI, is good for that, kind of thing.
So are there any projects or videos that you could tell us where you've kind of embraced all these awkwardness and put them together, just to kind of see how you've taken these and kind of run with them, I guess?
For Smarty Plants, a cannabis brand, was making a lot of videos. Like, they would have, every time they had a new strain come out, and they wanted like a 15-second video that just announces this strain is here now. And like getting like, it's like having a stilted weird computer voice that you can then have instantly, and then just like EQ it and stuff was like really fun. It's like, and you're on like such a tight timeline, and those come out like delightfully. That was just the right kind of weird for the right kind of weird assignment.
Which I watched that this morning because it's on your website, and I can see how the target audience of Smarty Plants would really appreciate the video too.
Well, the shorter ones are computer voices. The the long one was a real person, and then the 30-second one were free things I dug up from the Library of Congress. Like strange, bizarre, strange archives. I think if somebody can make an AI thing that can search more efficiently in like the Library of Congress archives, that's on my wish list for all of you engineer people.
Yeah, and I'm sure I saw some stat that's now outdated, but it was on Twitter where the last 30 days there were some 2,000 new AI tools that came out. So whether they're plugins or whatever, the speed at which these tools are coming out is wild.
Yeah, and I get like newsletters that'll have a bunch and like try them out. And like the quality is like widely varying. There was like a simple one where it was like it'll remove a background for 10 cents an image, and it's like, I mean, I can also remove a background, but all right, and it sucked. And it was again, it's like if this was a junior designer, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you suck at this? But I'm sure there's some good background removal robots out there also.
Yeah, we use Canva for a lot of our clients at Sociality Squared, and Canva has a really good background remover in like one click. And I think because it was so well and easy, I think Photoshop made it easier too to remove backgrounds really quickly, or Adobe came out with a similar tool. So yeah, in that regard, it makes non-designers being able to design a lot more accessible.
And even the current version of the current Gen 1 version of like Runway makes it easy. There's a lot of stuff in there that's like, you can do all of these things in like Premiere, or it can do it like a little bit faster there, like once you get into it. So yeah. Production wise, it's like there's a lot of stuff that'll just like speed up workflow, I think. But mostly I can't wait to get like access to Runway Gen 2 to be able to start feeding in like stranger source things and have it like really, really fuck things up.
and this is why don't you explain to people who don't know what this is? This is a text to video that's correct?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, Gen 2 is going to be like pure text to video. Gen 1 is still like at least as far as I can tell so far, Gen 1 is like of Runway is like you can put in like source things and then have like, it's like Instagram filters. Like they're all things you can do in Photoshop. It would take you like slightly longer. But you can like throw some filters on and put some things together and get like a good resolution output. So that's handy and practical. But like there was the stuff people can do with Gen 2 that's just genuinely like new and bizarre, I think is like the really exciting part. And using being able to, it's interesting too. It's like you can put like in ChatGPT, you can totally tell it to like answer in this, well-known person's like voice or persona, and it'll nail it. And with some image programs, you can say, like I asked, I think Dream Studio to make remake posters for 80s sitcoms as done by Van Gogh and like other like great artists, and it nailed it. And it was like, wow, that looks about right. Like ChatGPT you can tell it to like answer in the voice of this person or in this persona, and it'll nail it exactly. And then on image programs, like if you want it to emulate like an art movement or something, or an artist that's been dead for 100 years, it'll do it. yeah, the copyright thing gets tricky again, because it's like, yeah, just remake a still image of this as if it had been from a Wes Anderson movie, and Adobe Firefly was like, oh no, we can't do that. A lot of times the prompts that I put in, it comes back and says that it can't do, and then I have to like revise it and be like, oh, it was because of that. And then it's like, still no. And I'm like, oh God. And it might take me 4 or 5 tries to like figure out what the offensive thing was to the program. Because I'm like, I thought this was perfectly fine. We will not post any of those prompts or images in the notes.
I don't know if we want you on the content moderation team or not, Phil. Well, I will say, one thing I do want to build out for the website is kind of like a report card or cheat sheet to know which tools are good at what from an ethical standpoint. Adobe is one of the most, Firefly is one of the most ethical in terms of how they train their data sets. Midjourney, not so much. So that's coming in the future, and open invite for anyone to contribute.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was one I found the other day too, because I wanted it to make like a cartoon of like a deer shooting back at a hunter, like a cartoon of it, of a deer.
Yeah. You would see that on like Looney Tunes way back in the day. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Gary Larson actually had several of those back when he was making The Far Side. I was like, oh, make one of, and it's like, oh, this violates all of our, and I don't know, and the way that they write, there's a person behind how they phrase your rejection letter from the AI program, your rejection letter of whatever you just asked for, and it really comes across as that's something they might want to work on. It really comes across as like they're trying to make you feel bad for even asking. And I'm like,
I've had one of those experiences. I felt like a parent was like, shaming me to a certain extent. It was like, this is a very obscure and niche question that and violates terms of service. I was like, oh, geez, I'm put in my place.
When Adobe shot down my armed deer, it was like, we're not allowed to advocate violence and blah, 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 blah. Similarly, like ChatGPT, I was like, hey, it'd be funny to like see what it does with like, write a letter to Lindsey Graham advocating that we teach witchcraft in public schools. And it came back and it was like, oh, no, I can't do that, to try to influence like public policy. And it's like, oh, you thought I was serious. Like I was just going to take, you thought that, so that's another one where it's like there's a sarcasm gap.
Yeah,
that has not been figured out yet.
Hard to understand, via text anyway, for humans to understand all the time and pick up the nuance of that. So for machines to figure it out when humans miss it all the time, I think that once the machines understand sarcasm, maybe that's when we should get a little bit more worried.
Yeah. And it's such a weird moment of people trying to like, people all around the whole spectrum trying to like censor things by other people. And then it's like, we have to like decide how the robots are going to censor things and what. And it's like, well, my ray of sunshine is that is just going to be a massive fuckfest that no one can really figure out.
Get the popcorn. Well, and I guess because, with some of these tools, I think there's a difference playing with them personally and then maybe using them, especially with all the lawsuits happening around the copyrights for client work or commercial purposes. Do you differentiate the two, or are you transparent with clients if you do use AI at all in any of your projects, or how do you think about that? At all,
for sure,
or if at all?
Because if I'm using it as like like an editing tool, it's like no one yeah, for the kind of stuff that I do, like no one cares that I like used a thing to make this slightly shorter. But there's not, yeah, it's not good at any functions yet. Right now, it's not good at any of the functions that people are like actually paying me for. It'd be yeah, if you were purely like an editor, that would be like a different thing, I think. But yeah, I think for it's like I give all the AI things, like I give all of the programs 5 stars for personal amusement.
But if they were interns, you would fire them all.
And for interns, there would only be a few I would keep around. And it's like and I have had clients where like during a meeting they tried I don't know, it's like we were like going over something, and during the meeting somebody was like, well, ChatGPT just wrote this. I'm like, well, yeah, and it shouldn't have, but it did.
So, but you are hearing that at meetings already. Like, is it annoying to like?
Phenomenally annoying. But it's like by the time someone asks like ChatGPT to do it, like that line has already been butchered beyond all repair anyway. So it's like I find it annoying, but not like not infuriating, just like
and not threatening for your job yet.
yeah. The stuff that they want it, the stuff that they want it to write is stuff that like I don't want to write. Where my ethical objection wouldn't be that you're having a computer do it. My ethical objection is you shouldn't make anyone read that. That's too making the public, subjecting the public to something that boring is not okay. And I don't care if you're paying a person to do it, if you're having a computer do it for free. That's just boring shit that like no one should have to read. And I blame you, marketer, for wanting something that bad.
Yeah,
clients do get the work they deserve. I find, no matter who's doing it, they get the work they deserve.
And you get what you pay for too. If you're paying $20 a month for ChatGPT to be your copy editor.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. The really good ones that want something
I mean, one thing that I've definitely thought about is, there's already so much content that exists. And I mean, we've heard before in the social media industry, like feed the content beast to play to the algorithms and stuff. And these tools, are going to, really just make the output of all this creative that much more easy. So we're going to have flood of even more creative. So it either puts it on the onus to have even better content to stand out, or potentially on the tools themselves, on the algorithms to surface it. So I don't know. Yeah, the flood of content on top of what already exists, I'm kind of like trying to figure out how that's going to play out in some of the different scenarios.
For sure. Oh dear God. Oh yeah, I see nothing but doomsday scenarios there. You
say it so with a laugh though. This is why people are getting off social media.
I know.
That's the real.
Because so it's like I was talking to someone recently who has a media company about doing some creative stuff, and he had mentioned like I want somebody that can do that's familiar with like using AI tools, and I was like, oh yeah, because you can use it to like edit a piece of long copy, edit a deck, make a comp image for something. There's useful, efficient ways to do that. And you could even for social posts use it to make some like weird, deliberately weird, odd stuff that people would enjoy seeing. But then he sent me a link to some other AI tools and was like, I think these are great. And it was all just like, it was essentially just like templates where you could like, I'm advertising this kind of thing. And here's a template, here's an image, what kind of line do you want on there? And the stuff that comes out is just like so painfully generic. And it was like, oh yeah, I don't want to be involved in this or with anyone who wants this to happen. Cause it's the amount of the content race, there's already so much bad content by humans. And then now it's going to be like a supercharged arms race to like flood the internet with even more like low quality content.
And potentially incorrect content, because if you have copywriters who don't have expertise in like the SEO, blog posts or web content that are putting it out, and they don't catch when the tools do hallucinate, that's going to open up a whole new can of worms of just misinformation, flooding the internet, which I'm sure is already happening for people who are using it and don't have the subject matter expertise to know the difference if it's hallucinating or not.
Yeah. And it's like we already saw, like even in the early days of the internet, like when people figured out that they could have these, like click farms to like game the system for, media effectiveness. And like now those are automated with bots. And so it's like, man, it's like it turns into like the old lady that swallowed the fly. It's like, so we're going to make there's going to be all this easy to generate, cheap to generate, like low quality content that no humans actually want to read. But then other companies will make some bots that will pretend to be humans to read that. And it's like,
we're just making content for the machines to consume and then give us misinformation if we actually come across it.
Yeah, that's the ray of sunshine. Is the army of fake humans will absorb all of the content made by all of the other fake humans. And then it's like, well, all right, that universe can live over there. The things to prove that you're not a robot, like, are so weird and easy that it's like, man, why haven't the robots figured out how to identify stoplights yet? That's really weird to me.
Well, Twitter's a whole new hot mess these days, like how they never solved the bot problem because it's so bad. But that's one of many, many problems with Twitter these days. But yeah, the bots and the spammers and the hackers, like with these new tools, that's not going to be fun.
Yeah. But there'll be a lot of jobs in managing the robot armies, I think. That'll be fun.
Yeah. And, something else that I've been thinking about is also, you mentioned AI in yourself as the new Googling yourself. But I've heard in so many conversations where people are just going to ChatGPT to get answers over Google just because you don't have to sift through a ton of results. It's not really selling you stuff where the Google ads are. And then what does that mean for the SEO industry and to be discoverable for businesses to be found in search? That has really interesting implications.
And it is really good. I don't know if I mentioned that it's super handy writing when it's like when you get into like it's like the new Google search history is like looking back at like what you've asked ChatGPT, because I was doing that before this and I was like I asked it that. Wow, that's even by my standards. That was, I don't know what was happening there. Even by my very low standards of what's acceptable. But yeah, you can go back and see what you've asked ChatGPT before, and it keeps all those handy. But it's great writing tool when you're like, for some reason a while ago I needed a lot of synonyms for something, but I needed only ones that started with the letter P. And it's like, it didn't change my life, but it saved me probably 5 minutes of going. I would normally go to like, dictionary.com, thesaurus.com, something, synonym finder. But ChatGPT is, it's a great handy little synonym generator and that kind of thing.
I will say I use word hippo for my synonyms, and I actually think sometimes it does a better job than ChatGPT. So that's, some of the other tools that, TBD on their lifespan, but there are some niche ones out there that are still good and outperform ChatGPT, and from my viewpoint, at least.
What I also think is funny is like when you correct it and you tell it to like generate it again, and you even write sort of like and then you can kind of scold ChatGPT and be like, no.
And it apologizes like, I'm sorry, you didn't get it. I didn't deliver what you wanted.
Yeah. It's going to be terrible for people that like learn to manage ChatGPT before they manage actual humans, and then they're suddenly going to be like, humans don't grovel immediately when I tell them they're wrong.
Oh God, this is human etiquette and conversation. I worry. I haven't thought about that scenario before, Phil. I worry.
That's what I'm here for. Giving people new things to worry about and stay up late at night.
Well, I guess on that note, are there things that keep you up at night? Things that excite you? Maybe some predictions or wish lists with the tool? You can answer all or any one of those.
AI related things that keep me awake at night.
Yeah.
aside from humanity's general trajectory.
It's too early in the morning for that conversation. That's another. That's one in New York with beers in hand.
I do. I enjoy the it's like having a new internet again. Just the sheer wormhole of can you rewrite this as if it were so and so, and you can use it. And using it to be like, role play this conversation with me as if you were so and so, and it's like, wow, that's odd. That feels oddly correct. Not always perfect. When I asked it to do a dialogue between Alice Cooper and Jay Leno about wood in iambic pentameter, it got the iambic pentameter right exactly, but the references, the way that it embodied Alice Cooper was like very superficial, just kind of like mentioning music. And I don't think it really got Jay Leno's voice at all.
Did you tell it that? Did you have it? Did it improve after you scolded it?
Its lack of understanding of Alice Cooper, I thought, was so disturbing that I just abandoned that one. I was like, no, you don't even get a second
fired.
chance.
This one AI intern is fired.
It had one line was it had Alice. It starts with Alice Cooper. A wood so strong and sturdy, how you please the eye with your rough bark and hues so brown. Your grain so varied makes artful ease in forms of furniture and structures sound. And then later Alice picks up saying, wood also holds a dark side. It burns with fury, wreaks destruction wild, but still its beauty cannot be denied. And music, too, it's used to make sound. And it's like, Alice Cooper would have had like something a lot more specific and a lot deeper. And then it's like, Jay says, yes, guitars and drums are made of wood. It's a material that's truly understood. And it's like, really, I think that was my most disappointing experience so far. And that kept me up for longer than it should have.
What was it, because of the output, or was it maybe I didn't ask the prompt right? That's a new existential question.
Oh no, it made me worry that like it was failing to find enough Alice Cooper reference material on the internet to really be able to simulate Alice Cooper.
Oh, so it wasn't trained properly on Alice
Yeah,
Cooper, and that's where the machine failed. Its education on Alice Cooper.
Yeah, so that was sad for me, and it made me weep for great music that may go go extinct one day. But yeah, no, it's like I kind of worry about what it means for people writing some kinds of copy, blogs, and product stuff, and then I do think that there'll be other things for those people. So then I worry about other stuff for a while. And I worry, I guess my biggest fear is like, like the clients that will be like, well, I asked ChatGPT to write it and it said this. So it's like, if there are clients who aren't good at recognizing good from bad, and they don't realize how bad some of that output is, that makes me worry. Like, but that parallels like, but I'm always worrying about the decline of appreciation for quality across every human endeavor. So, in that sense, I'm not losing any more or less sleep than I was before AI happened. But I feel like I'm losing sleep in more interesting, more varied ways. Well, and also, but some of it's in good ways, because just staying up and going down the weird rabbit holes of like, and I can make it do this, and I can make it do this, and it's almost like you you have a 24/7 puppet. And I asked it to write a sestina about gardening, which is this like super obscure poetic form that all revolves around like sixes. It's like six stanzas with 6 lines each, and then it's a really complicated meter and everything. And it did that just like so fast, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And it gave me comfort that like it was able to know what any specific poetic form was. And I worry about, I wonder and worry about what the hell it means for like the future of as a parent, thinking about the future and then thinking about what would I have done if this was around in high school. It's like, wow, that would have sped up a lot of stuff. And so then you think about like, well, they're going to be, so the task of like, digest this and then summarize it is going to be, the computer can do that for you. And they're trying to make things where they can detect it and watermark it and all that stuff. But students will be able to like, so like a lot of fundamental parts of like your English education, like will be things that are easily skippable. And I feel like that's going to result in deficiencies in like kids' language ability eventually, which is bad. But then it's like, if they're able to like, they're no longer, they're not going to spend time writing like reports that just regurgitate things. So it's like, but then they have this fucking tool in front of them to like go make. It'll be more about like making new things. So then I feel like a little bit better. And then I'll get a news alert on my phone that something else terrible just happened. Then I'm like, okay, now I can go back to my state of generalized angst.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel too good about the world for too long, but I mean, it's gonna have like huge, because it's like, you think about, I don't know, a lot of college, at least when I went to college back in ancient times, it was like the like social experience and like the learning how to learn was such a big part of it. But now that's going to be like a whole different thing. And they'll be able to like ask ChatGPT to tell them about things and like, tell me how this works and tell me how that works in ways that like it's quicker than, Google will give you a bunch of search results and half of those will be clickbait. whereas ChatGPT will just start telling you, but then you don't know if it hasn't been fact checked. So God knows. Yeah. See, I just started to feel good about it, and then quickly found a reason to feel bad about it
in real time. The thought process going through Phil's mind.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing. I mean, when I was in college, the social media industry did not exist. I got a major in marketing, and then I went straight from undergrad to grad school, and that was right when social media was opening up to businesses and becoming an industry. But you didn't go to school at that time to be a social media marketer by any means.
Right.
So I think about that. That there's job titles that don't exist today that will exist because of these tools. Like, I went to school for marketing before social media was a thing. So we don't even know all of the new jobs and the new titles and what these tools will open up to.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing too, because it's like I have had the thought that like I want my kid to start learning, like the sooner he starts learning about AI stuff, the better. But then my wife and I have different opinions about screen time and screens. He watches a lot of stuff, but he picks really good stuff.
Well, naturally, he's your son, Phil.
There's a whole great world of Lego Star Wars content and like lots of really good things, and I'm like, I'm gonna worry and be disappointed when he's picking like shitty shows to watch. In the same way, I'm disappointed in and judgmental of people that watch any show that I think is shitty.
But maybe they're enjoying it because it is bad, in the same way that you enjoy the bad AI outputs.
Maybe
the pleasure in bad content. I'm sure there might be a German word for that.
Those shows need to get worse though. Like, and that's what I'm looking forward to, is being able to like, take when I can get to like Runway Gen 2 and have it make combine several of the different like period shows where it's just English people stumbling into rooms and being shocked and then stumbling into other rooms.
There's like hate watching, which I think is different than watching something bad for the pleasure of it, because it's so funny. Yeah.
That's true.
One thing I've always loved about advertising is that it is a reflection of society, or where society wants to go. So I think it's a really interesting moment for advertisers of how they're showcasing brands and how they're saying it in this moment of time, and where the reflection is, and where we want to go to. Do you have any ideas or reactions or thoughts on that?
Well, the degree to which it's a reflector, just depending on the day and depending on what I'm watching at the moment, I find alternately comforting and horrifying. And it just vacillates between those two constantly. So I don't know. I think once all that AI tech picks up and gets a little better, I think it's going to be used to make, I think too many people but it'll be sort of like when CGI came out and there was a rush, like, because the entertainment industry did first, there's going to be a rush to make, there's going to be a rush to use it. And the same way we look back now at like commercials that had heavy special effects in like the 90s and early 2000s, and we're like, oh God, that was impressive then. I think 10 years from now, if humanity still exists, I think we'll look back at advertising from the early AI influenced advertising and be like, oh God, remember when we did that? What the hell were we thinking? But then it'll get better and hopefully be used to make, I don't really think it will. Hopefully it'll be used to make better things, but it's like, ultimately it's like the AI is going to be a mirror of humanity for the good parts and the bad ones, and you know which one I think is probably going to win. But I think that's like the end. But then we can all sing Billy Joel's "We'll All Go Down Together" as everything as the world burns, and so that's something. That's a moment of togetherness before the great beyond.
It is a funny thing about human nature that sometimes it takes a catastrophe or the threat of a catastrophe or hitting rock bottom for like the wake up call to happen and to pivot and shift.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think one of my hopes, and I would say a realist but an optimist at heart, is that we shift course or change course before the hitting the total rock bottom, and that's just a matter of will to make it happen.
Well, it's always like a tale of like the correction kind of. There's like that whiplash, and the correction kind of follows. It'll be too late, and then it'll be too much, and then we'll start doing something else that we need to correct. But I think as time goes on, like if I had paid more attention to trigonometry, I would know which kind of wave to call it. But eventually that wave will get like more and more extreme. And so eventually, where's the breaking point of the tail being just taking too long to like catch back up? And that's when the world ends. So something exciting to watch for.
Good.
Good indicators.
Well, any closing thoughts that you want to leave
besides
our viewers with and listeners?
Besides the rhubarb, world ending.
My safe word for today's episode, rhubarb. If we get too dark, that was my safe word.
I mean, before the next dark age begins, I think, I don't know. Yeah, I think the amount of just delightfully weird shit you can make experimenting, I think is gonna be super fun. And it's like I'm waiting for like the image generators to be able to do things that like are in slightly more high res. I like the pepperoni hug spot thing. I will watch over and over again. And then there was another one. There was another one for beer and another one for like pizza nuggets that are all. And that's the weird thing is it's like those are so funny because they're so bad, but they're bad in ways that like a person would never have thought of. Like nobody would have thought to make like the weird like distortions that happen in those things. And yeah, I think once I don't know, like I'll be less interested in AI once it's like, really, really good. But I feel like right now it's like we're in like the really fun playground phase where it's like you can use it to make and not everyone like fully appreciates it, but those are like people that don't look at pepperoni hug spot and find it entertaining are not people I want to be around anyway. So in a way it's kind of it's a helpful way to like identify who you really want to be friends with. Is like, did you think pepperoni hug spot was hilarious or not?
So if you're considering working with Phil, watch that first.
Yes, make sure you like
reaching out to him.
Make sure you like pepperoni hug spot. And so I think, despite the eventual, possible nightmares and pitfalls, I think there'll be, a lot of fun to be had playing around with making weirdly intelligently dumb things.
So So before Doomsday or Armageddon, we can all enjoy pizza hug spot.
Yeah. We'll have like the most enjoyable side effect of artificial intelligence is artificial inadvertent dumbness, and the fact that like if you had told it to like, yeah, God knows what would happen if like you gave it a prompt to like try to make a pizza commercial with like disturbingly morphed human beings that like are connected to that are fused with the food that they're eating. But actually they, without going into detail, a lot of those image generators also now censor things that they used to not. Because I was having a lot of fun with prompts that you might call sacrilegious, and then suddenly one day it was like, oh no, we can't do that, and I'm like, oh, really? You used to be cool, Stable Diffusion.
You're making Phil's sandbox smaller.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the large scale doomsday fears about what it means for society, and in addition to like the large scale societal problematic things that people worry about, I'm more worried about the short term where some of the really fun weird shit that you can make, like they're like, oh, you can't do that anymore, and it's like, no, but this was good fun bizarre, and they're lumping the good bizarre in with the bad bizarre, and I feel like there needs to be a bizarreness czar appointed in the US by the administration, and it should be me.
I feel like this is your next campaign poster for your prompt.
Yeah. It's like I don't have that much free time, but I'd like to donate as much of it as I could to really oversee the boundaries of what kinds of bizarre things I can make, and just issue a rule. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a big team to like really streamline it for me every day, so I can make decisions on that's bizarre in a bad way and that's bizarre in a good way. But I really think I would be good at it. So
I love it. You've got Austin and I think Portland, Oregon. Their city slogans are kind of like keep Austin weird, keep Portland weird. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure Portland has that too, but I know Austin does. And Phil's slogan is keep AI weird.
Yeah.
Or keep AI bizarre.
Yeah. Don't be one of these killjoys that stops the hallucinations and makes the imagery too accurate, because that's why it's fun. When it's too good, it's going to be like, oh God, you're like a person. I liked you better when you were a mysterious force for chaos. And if you're not going to do that, then what do I need you for?
Are humans too predictable then?
Yeah. This was the great promise of AI is to help people appreciate strange, chaotic things. So that's my hope. That's my hope and dream. In addition to being appointed the bizarreness czar.
Well, on that note, Phil, it is always so much fun talking to you and getting a glimpse into your head and what goes on in there. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you for being willing to do that.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. We're just getting started and would love your support. Subscribe to Creativity Squared on your preferred podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps. And I'd love to hear your feedback. What topics are you thinking about and want to dive into more? I invite you to visit creativitysquared.com to let me know. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter so you can easily stay on top of all the latest news at the intersection of AI and creativity. Because it's so important to support artists, 10% of all revenue Creativity Squared generates will go to ArtsWave, a nationally recognized nonprofit that supports over 100 arts organizations. Become a premium newsletter subscriber or leave a tip on the website to support this project and ArtsWave. And premium newsletter subscribers will receive NFTs of episode cover art and more extras to say thank you for helping bring my dream to life. And a big, big thank you to everyone who's offered their time, energy, and encouragement and support so far. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. This show is produced and made possible by the team at Play Audio Agency. Until next week, keep creating.